The alarm screamed through the metal corridors of New Seoul Orbital Station like a wounded animal. Red lights flashed on every wall. Dropped his wrench and stood up fast, hitting his head on the pipe he had been fixing. He cursed under his breath and looked around. Something was very wrong. Was 19 years old. He had worked on the station for 2 years now, fixing pipes and cleaning filters in the lower decks where nobody important ever went. It was boring work, but it paid well enough to send money home to his father and his little sister. That was all that mattered to him. The station shook, grabbed the wall to keep himself standing. Through the small window nearby, he saw something that made his blood turn cold. A cargo freighter, massive and dark, was spinning out of control. It had already hit the outer ring of the station. Fire and debris floated in the black space outside. "Collision on Sector 7, the computer voice announced. "All personnel proceed to evacuation pods. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Started running. His boots clanged against the metal floor. Other workers ran past him, their faces full of fear. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked back. In moments like this, everyone thought only of themselves. The corridor split into two paths. The left path led to the evacuation pods. The right path led deeper into the station, toward the observation deck. Turned left, but then he heard something that made him stop. A scream, high and thin like a child. He stood there for 3 heartbeats. The station groaned around him. Metal twisted somewhere far away. The smart thing to do was keep running. The pods would fill up fast. If he waited too long, he would die here. But that scream turned right and ran toward it. The observation deck was a large room with tall windows that looked out into space. Rich people and tourists came here to watch the stars, had never been inside before. Workers like him were not welcome in such places. The room was empty now. Chairs were knocked over. Drinks were spilled on the floor. Everyone had fled, everyone except one person. She stood near the largest window, frozen like a statue. Had never seen anyone like her before. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and it glowed softly in the emergency lights. Her hair was silver and fell past her shoulders like water. Her eyes were large and completely black, like 2 pieces of polished obsidian. I recognized the species from news broadcasts. They were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. They lived for thousands of years. They had technology that humans could not even understand. They also thought humans were little better than animals, primitive, dangerous, stupid. They rarely came to human stations. When they did, they stayed in the most expensive areas, far from common workers. So what was this girl doing here alone? She looked young, maybe 15 or 16 in human years, though with that meant nothing. She could be 100 years old. Her glowing skin flickered like a dying light bulb. Realized she was terrified. "Hey," he shouted, "we need to go now." She turned to look at him. Her black eyes were wet with tears. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her whole body was shaking. The station shook again, harder this time. The ceiling above them cracked. Dust and small pieces of metal rained down. Looked up and saw the support beam directly above the girl. It was bending, breaking. He did not think. There was no time to think. His body moved on its own. Crossed the room in 5 steps. He grabbed the girl and threw both of them to the ground. He covered her body with his own, wrapping his arms around her head to protect it. She was small under him, thin and fragile. Her skin was cool against his hands. The beam came down. The sound was like thunder. Metal screamed as it tore apart. Something massive and heavy struck back. Pain exploded through his body, white and blinding. He heard his own bones crack. He felt his spine bend in a way it should not bend. But he did not let go of the girl. More debris fell, smaller pieces now. They bounced off his back and shoulders. Each impact sent new waves of pain through him. He tasted blood in his mouth. His vision was going dark at the edges. The girl was screaming something in her own language. Her hands gripped his shirt. Her cool skin pressed against his chest. She was alive. That was good. That was all that mattered. "It's okay," whispered. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, weak, far away. "It's okay, you're safe." The falling stopped. The room became quiet except for the distant alarms and the girl's crying. Tried to move, but his body would not obey him. He could not feel his legs anymore. That was probably bad. That was probably very bad. He managed to lift his head a little. The girl was looking up at him with those huge black eyes. Her tears left silver trails on her blue cheeks. Up close, she was beautiful in a strange, alien way, like a creature from an old fairy tale. "Run," said, "get to the pods." She shook her head. Her hands tightened on his shirt. "You have to go," he said. His voice was getting weaker. "Leave me, I can't move." She said something in her language. Did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. She was refusing. She would not leave him. Footsteps came from the corridor, shouting voices. Human voices and other voices too, speaking in languages did not know. Help was coming. Maybe they would both survive after all. Let his head drop. The cold metal floor felt good against his cheek. He was so tired. The pain was fading now, replaced by a heavy numbness that spread through his whole body. That was probably not good either. The girl's face appeared above him. Her silver hair fell around them like a curtain. Her glowing skin lit up the small space between their faces. She was still crying, but her expression had changed. There was something else there now, something like wonder. She placed her hand on his cheek. Her palm was cool and soft. Her lips moved, forming words he could not hear. The last thing saw before the darkness took him was the glow of her skin growing brighter. The last thing he felt was her hand on his face, gentle and warm despite its coolness. Then there was nothing. Rescue teams found them 7 minutes later. The human boy was unconscious, his body broken in 13 different places. His spine was fractured. His internal organs were bleeding. The doctors who examined him said it was a miracle he was still breathing. The girl was unharmed, not a single scratch on her glowing skin. When the rescue workers tried to separate them, she refused to let go of his hand. She held onto him all the way to the medical bay, her black eyes never leaving his face. Nobody understood why a human maintenance worker had risked his life for a noble. Nobody understood why he had run toward danger instead of away from it. Nobody understood why he had shielded her body with his own, knowing it would destroy him. But the girl understood. And she would never forget. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. Rows of beds filled the large room, most of them empty now. The station had been lucky. Only 12 people died in the collision. Another 40 were injured. Most of them had already been sent home or moved to other facilities. But one patient remained. Lay in the bed near the window, tubes running in and out of his body. A machine breathed for him. Another machine monitored his heart. His face was pale and still, like a mask made of wax. If not for the slow rise and fall of his chest, he might have been dead. The doctors said he was in a coma. His body had shut down to protect itself from the damage. His spine was broken in 3 places. His kidneys were failing. His brain had swelled from the impact. They gave him a 30% chance of ever waking up. Even if he did wake up, they said he would probably never walk again. 3 days passed, did not move. He did not open his eyes. He simply lay there, suspended between life and death. But he was not alone. Lyra sat in the chair beside his bed. She had been there since the first night, refusing to leave except to use the bathroom. The nurses brought her food, which she barely touched. They brought her blankets, which she ignored. She simply sat and watched the human boy sleep. Her father, Ambassador, came to take her away many times. He stood at the door of the medical bay, his tall figure wrapped in expensive robes, his face tight with anger and worry. "This is not proper," he said in their language. "You have duties, responsibilities. This human means nothing to us." But Lyra would not move. She would not even look at her father. She just sat in her chair, holding his hand, her black eyes fixed on his pale face. Did not understand. How could he? He had not been there. He had not seen what Lyra had seen. She had watched this human boy run toward her when everyone else was running away. She had watched him throw himself over her body like a shield. She had felt his bones break against her back. She had heard him tell her to run, to save herself, even as he was dying. Why? That was the question that burned in her mind. Why would he do such a thing? They were taught from birth that survival was the highest law. Their species had lived for millions of years because they were careful, calculating. They did not take unnecessary risks. They did not sacrifice themselves for strangers, especially not for members of inferior species. But this human had done exactly that, without hesitation, without calculation. He had simply acted as natural as breathing. Lyra did not understand, and because she did not understand, she could not leave. On the third night, something strange happened. Lyra was dozing in her chair when she felt a pull in her mind. It was gentle at first, like a whisper at the edge of hearing. Then it grew stronger. She realized with a shock that she was sensing dreams. Had mild telepathic abilities. They could sense emotions and, in rare cases, glimpse thoughts and memories. But this usually only worked with other. Humans were supposed to be closed to them, their minds too chaotic and primitive to read. Yet somehow, dreams were flowing into her like water through a crack. She saw a small house on Earth, surrounded by green trees. She saw a woman with kind eyes and smile cooking something in a tiny kitchen. His mother. Lyra understood that she was dead now. The memory was tinged with old, deep sadness. She saw a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, with messy hair and a loud laugh. His sister. Lyra felt the fierce love carried for this child. It burned like a small sun in his chest. She saw a tired man with rough hands and a bent back, working in darkness among floating rocks. His father, mining asteroids to pay for food and medicine, sent him money every month, every single month without fail. Lyra saw more. She saw as a young boy giving his lunch to a hungry dog on the street. She saw him as a teenager, standing between a bully and a smaller kid, taking the punches meant for someone else. She saw him working late nights, fixing machines until his hands bled, so he could send just a little more money home. A pattern emerged. Again and again put others before himself. It was not a choice he made. It was simply who he was. His soul was shaped by sacrifice, as natural to him as his heartbeat. Tears rolled down Lyra's cheeks. She finally understood. Humans did not calculate. They did not weigh costs and benefits. When they saw someone in danger, something inside them simply moved. It was instinct. It was nature. It was the core of what made them human. The thought humans were primitive because of this. But Lyra now saw the truth. This was not weakness. This was strength. A strength her own people had lost long ago, somewhere in their millions of years of careful survival. Lyra made a decision. She stood up from her chair and walked to his bedside. The machines beeped steadily. The artificial light hummed overhead. Outside the window, stars drifted past in the endless black. Lyra placed both hands on his chest. She closed her eyes. What she was about to do was forbidden. It was an ancient ritual, rarely performed even among. The gift of essence, her people called it. A transfer of life force from one being to another. It would bind them together forever, their souls connected across any distance. No had ever given this gift to an outsider. The punishment for doing so was exile, disgrace. Her father would never forgive her. Her people would never accept her again. Lyra did not care. She began to chant in the old language, words that had not been spoken for centuries. Her skin started to glow brighter, pulsing with inner light. She felt her own life force gathering in her chest, warm and golden. Then she pushed it into. The light flowed from her hands into his body. It spread through his veins, his muscles, his bones. It wrapped around his damaged spine like gentle fingers. It touched his failing organs and whispered them back to life. The process took hours. By the time it was done, the artificial sun was rising outside the station windows, painting the stars with pale gold. Lyra was exhausted, her glow dim, her body weak. But when she looked at, she saw color returning to his cheeks. She heard his heartbeat growing stronger. She felt, through their new bond, the spark of consciousness beginning to stir in his mind. He would live, he would walk again, he would be more than he was before. Lyra reached into her robe and pulled out a small pendant. It was a crystal, pale blue like her skin, shaped like a teardrop. It had belonged to her mother before her and her grandmother before that. A bonding token, given only to those who held a piece of one's soul. She placed it gently on the table beside bed. Then she turned and walked away. She did not look back. If she looked back, she would not be able to leave, and she had to leave. Her father was waiting. Her people were waiting. The world she knew was waiting. But as she walked through the corridor toward the docking bay where the ship waited, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. A thread of warmth in her chest, connecting her to the human boy sleeping behind her. She would feel that thread for the rest of her very long life. And somewhere deep in his healing sleep, dreamed of silver hair and glowing skin, and a hand as cool as moonlight on his cheek. Opened his eyes. White ceiling, bright lights, the smell of medicine and clean sheets. He blinked several times, trying to understand where he was. His mouth was dry, his head felt heavy, but strangely nothing hurt. He remembered pain. He remembered the ceiling falling. He remembered holding someone small and fragile beneath him while his body broke apart. He remembered darkness. How long had he been asleep? A nurse walked past his bed and stopped dead. Her eyes went wide. She dropped the tray she was carrying. Cups and medicine bottles clattered across the floor. "Doctor," she screamed. "Doctor, come quick, he's awake." What followed was chaos. Doctors rushed in from every direction. They shone lights in his eyes. They pressed cold metal things against his chest. They asked him question after question. What was his name? What year was it? Could he feel his legs? Could he move his toes? Answered as best he could. Yes, he could feel his legs. Yes, he could move his toes. He could move everything. He sat up in the bed and the doctors stared at him like he was a ghost. "This is impossible," one of them whispered. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. His spine was broken in 3 places. His kidneys were failing, the swelling in his brain. He shook his head. No human should be able to recover from those injuries. Not like this. Not in a week. A week had been asleep for a week. "The girl," he said suddenly. His voice was rough from not being used. "The alien girl, the one eye. Is she okay?" The doctors looked at each other. Some shrugged. Others shook their heads. "The delegation left 4 days ago," the gray-haired doctor said. "The girl was unharmed. You saved her life, young man. That much we know." She was gone, felt something sink in his chest. He did not know why. He did not even know her name. But somehow, knowing she was gone felt like losing something important. Then he noticed the pendant. It sat on the small table beside his bed, glowing faintly with soft blue light. It was shaped like a teardrop, made of some crystal he had never seen before. When he reached out and touched it, warmth spread through his fingers and up his arm. "What is this?" he asked. No one knew. The nurses said it had been there when they arrived the morning after the accident. No one had seen anyone put it there. It was a mystery. Picked up the pendant and held it in his palm. The warmth grew stronger, and with it came something else. A feeling, a presence at the edge of his mind, like someone was standing just behind him, just out of sight. The girl, he did not know how he knew, but he knew. This pendant was connected to her somehow. over the next few days, discovered that he was different now. It started with small things. A nurse bumped into a cart and his hand shot out to catch a falling bottle before he even realized he was moving. His reflexes were faster, much faster, inhumanly fast. Then there was the cut. He was shaving in the bathroom when the razor slipped and opened a gash on his chin. He watched in shock as the wound closed itself in less than a minute. The blood dried. The skin knitted together. Within an hour, there was no mark at all. And then there were the feelings. When the gray-haired doctor walked into the room, felt worry and confusion radiating from him like heat from a fire. When a young nurse came to check his vitals, he felt her curiosity and attraction, pink and warm. When another patient cried in a bed across the hall, felt his grief as clearly as if it were his own. He could sense emotions now, not thoughts, not words, but feelings. They came to him unbidden, flowing from everyone around him. What had happened to him? What had that girl done? Was discharged from the medical bay after 5 days of tests. The doctors had no explanation for his recovery. They called it a miracle. They called it unprecedented. They told him to come back if anything strange happened. Everything was strange now, but did not tell them that. His friend was waiting for him outside the medical bay. Was 22, tall and skinny with a round face and glasses that never sat straight on his nose. They had worked together on the lower decks for almost 2 years. Was the closest thing had to family on the station. "You crazy idiot," said, grabbing in a tight hug. "You beautiful, stupid, crazy idiot. I thought you were dead. Everyone thought you were dead." Hugged him back. He could feel emotions clearly. Relief, joy, fear, love. It was overwhelming. "I'm okay," he said. "I'm better than okay, actually." Pulled back and looked at him closely. "You're different," he said slowly. "Something's different about you. I can't tell what, but something is definitely different." Just smiled and did not answer. The video had spread across the galaxy by now. Someone's security footage had captured running into the observation deck, throwing himself over the alien girl, the ceiling coming down on his back. It had been played millions of times on news networks across dozens of worlds. Humans called him a hero. They made him the face of humanity's best qualities. "See," they said to the other species, "see what we are capable of. See how we protect the innocent, even at the cost of our own lives." Other species were confused. The calculating races, the long-lived races, the careful races, they could not understand. Why would a human risk death for a stranger? Why would he sacrifice himself for a member of a species that looked down on his own kind? The especially were troubled. Learned this from a news broadcast one evening. The High Council had called a special meeting. They wanted to know why one of their nobles had been saved by a human. They wanted to know why the girl had stayed by his bed for 3 days. They wanted to know what she had done before she left. The broadcast mentioned her name for the first time, Lyra. Her name was Lyra. Touched the pendant around his neck. He had strung it on a cord and wore it always close to his heart. When he touched it, he felt that presence again, that warmth, that sense of someone waiting for him somewhere far away. That night he dreamed of an alien world. The sky was silver, not blue. The trees glowed with inner light, their leaves singing in a wind that smelled like flowers and rain. 2 moons hung overhead, one large and white, one small and pink. And in the middle of a field of glowing grass, a girl with silver hair stood watching him. Lyra. She did not speak in the dream. She just looked at him with those huge black eyes, and he felt everything she was feeling: sadness, longing, hope, fear, and beneath it all a connection, a thread of golden light that stretched between them, binding them together across the vast emptiness of space. Woke with tears on his face and her name on his lips. He understood now. Whatever Lyra had done to him, whatever gift she had given, it had changed him forever. They were connected, bound. He could feel her out there, far away, like a star just over the horizon. And he knew with absolute certainty that he would find her again. He did not know how, he did not know when, but he would find her. Because some bonds could not be broken by distance. Some gifts came with invisible strings, and some debts could only be repaid in person. Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Lyra was waiting. 2 months had passed since woke up in the medical bay. 2 months of dreams about silver skis and glowing forests. 2 months of feeling Lyra's presence like a distant heartbeat in his chest. 2 months of planning. He quit his job on the station. He sold everything he owned except the clothes on his back and the pendant around his neck. He used all his savings to buy a ticket on a cargo ship heading toward the edge of human space. From there, he would find another way forward, and then another, until he reached territory. Everyone told him he was crazy. His father sent worried messages from the asteroid mines, begging him to reconsider. His sister cried during their video call, asking why he was leaving. His shook their heads and muttered about fools and death wishes. Humans were not allowed in space. The borders were closed. Anyone who tried to cross without permission was arrested or worse. Knew all of this. He went anyway. Was waiting for him at the docking bay with a bag over his shoulder. "You're not coming," said. "Try to stop me," replied. They argued for 20 minutes, said the journey was too dangerous, said that was exactly why he needed to come. Said had a life here, a job, a future. Said none of that mattered if his best friend died alone in alien space. In the end, gave up. Was the most stubborn person he had ever met, and truthfully, he was grateful. The journey ahead was long and uncertain. Having a friend by his side made it less frightening. The cargo ship was called the Iron Wanderer. It was old and rusty, held together by patches and prayers. The captain was a large woman named with scars on her face and kindness in her eyes. She asked no questions about why two young men wanted to travel to the edge of known space. She simply took their money and showed them to a small room barely big enough for 2 bunks. The journey took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of recycled air and packaged food and the endless hum of old engines. Spent most of his time staring out the small window at the stars. The pendant pulsed warmer as they traveled, confirming what he already felt. He was getting closer to her. At the border of human space, they transferred to a smaller ship run by smugglers, then to another ship, then to another. Each one took them deeper into territory where humans were not welcome. Each one cost more money. Each one was more dangerous than the last. Complained constantly about the food, about the smell, about the cramped spaces and suspicious aliens who looked at them like prey, but he never once suggested turning back. He never once abandoned his friend. On the 47th day of their journey, they crossed into space. The pendant around his neck blazed with warmth. His dreams became more vivid. He saw Lyra every night now. She was sitting in a grand room with tall windows looking out at those silver forests. She looked sad, lonely, trapped. She felt him too. He knew she did. Sometimes in the dreams she would turn her head toward him, her black eyes widening with hope. Sometimes she would reach out her hand, but always before they could touch would wake up. Their luck ran out on the 3rd day in space. The patrol ship appeared out of nowhere. One moment the stars were empty. The next, a massive silver vessel hung before them, its weapons glowing with deadly light. The smuggler captain barely had time to curse before the tractor beam caught them, and were dragged from the ship by soldiers. They were tall, these aliens, taller than humans by a head. Their blue skin glowed faintly in the darkness. Their black eyes held no warmth at all. "Humans," one of them said in heavily accented common, "in space, without permission." He made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You will stand before the tribunal. You will answer for your crime." The tribunal was held on a station that orbited a planet of silver and white, and stood in a circular room surrounded by officials in flowing robes. Above them, on raised platforms, sat the judges. Their faces were cold and distant, like statues carved from ice. "The humans will explain their presence in our territory," the lead judge announced. Her voice echoed in the silent room. "If the explanation is not satisfactory, the punishment will be severe." Stepped forward first. His voice was shaking, but he spoke clearly. "We are looking for someone. My friend here, he saved the life of a girl during the station accident 2 months ago. He's been dreaming about her ever since. He came to find her." Whispers rippled through the room. The judges exchanged glances. "You speak of the incident on New Seoul Station," the lead judge said slowly. "You speak of the human who shielded Ambassador's daughter." "Yes," said. He stepped forward to stand beside. I am the one from the video, and the girl I saved, her name is Lyra. I came here to see her." Silence fell. The judges stared at him with their cold black eyes, could feel their emotions: surprise, confusion, and beneath it all something like fear. "Why?" the lead judge finally asked. "Why would a human cross the galaxy, risking death for a girl he barely knows? What do you want from her?" Thought about the question. He thought about the accident, the falling ceiling, the weight of debris on his back. He thought about the dreams, the pendant, the thread of warmth in his chest. "I don't want anything from her," he said. "She gave me something, a gift. I feel her in my mind. I feel her loneliness. I feel her sadness." He touched the pendant at his chest. "I came because she's hurting, and I couldn't just leave her to hurt alone." The whispers grew louder. The judges looked disturbed now. One of them leaned forward. "You speak of the gift of essence," he said. His voice was hard. "This is a sacred ritual, human. It is forbidden to share with outsiders. You are saying that the ambassador's daughter performed this ritual on you." Did not know what the gift of essence was. He did not understand the laws he had apparently broken. He only knew what he felt. "I'm saying she saved my life," he said simply. "Just like I saved hers, and now we're connected. I don't understand how or why, I just know that I had to come." The judges argued among themselves. Some demanded punishment. Some demanded answers. Some seemed unsure what to do with the strange human who had traveled across the stars for a bond he did not even understand. Then the doors burst open. Everyone turned, his heart stopped. She stood in the doorway, breathing hard, her silver hair wild around her face. Her skin glowed brighter than he remembered. Her black eyes found his across the crowded room. "Lyra!" She had escaped from somewhere. Guards were running behind her, shouting. Her father, Ambassador, stood nearby with shock on his face. But Lyra saw none of them. She saw only. "You came," she whispered. Her voice carried through the silent room. "You actually came." Felt the thread between them blaze with light. After all this time, after all these miles, they were finally in the same room. "Of course I came," he said. "You called me. How could I not answer?" Lyra smiled for the first time in months. It was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. And in that moment, surrounded by hostile judges and confused guards, and an entire species that thought humans were primitive creatures, knew he had made the right choice. Some journeys were worth any risk. Some bonds were worth crossing a galaxy. The tribunal room had exploded into chaos. Guards rushed toward Lyra. Officials shouted over each other. Ambassador pushed through the crowd, his face twisted between anger and fear. But Lyra did not stop. She walked straight through the chaos, her eyes fixed on, her glowing skin pulsing with each step. The guards who tried to grab her fell back, their hands burned by the light that surrounded her. She reached him. She stood before him. After all the dreams, after all the distance, they were finally face to face. "I felt you coming," Lyra said softly. Her voice was like music. "Every day, closer and closer. I thought I was imagining it. I thought it was just a wish." "It wasn't a wish," replied. He reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool and soft, just like he remembered from the accident. "I'm really here." The lead judge stood up, her robe swirling around her. "This is outrageous," she shouted. "Guards, separate them immediately. The human has corrupted the ambassador's daughter." "No," the word came from Ambassador. Everyone turned to look at him. Walked forward slowly. His tall frame was bent with exhaustion and something else, something like defeat. He stopped a few feet from Lyra, looking at them with ancient black eyes. "I have watched my daughter waste away for 2 months," he said quietly. "I have watched her refuse food, refuse company, refuse to smile. I have watched her stare at the stars every night, waiting for something I did not understand." He gestured at, "Now I understand." She was waiting for him. "Ambassador," the lead judge said sharply, "you cannot possibly be defending this. The gift of essence was given to an outsider, to a human. The law is clear." "The law was written to protect our people," replied, "to ensure the gift was never abused or taken by force." He looked at for a long moment. "But this human took nothing. He gave. He gave his body to shield my daughter. He gave his health, his future, his very life. And when she gave him the gift in return, he did not use it to gain power or advantage. He used it to find her, to help her, to answer her call." Silence fell over the room. The judges exchanged uncertain glances. "Our people have lived for millions of years," continued. "We have survived because we are careful, because we calculate, because we do not take risks." He paused. "But somewhere along the way, we forgot something important. We forgot what it means to act without thinking, to give without expecting, to love without calculating the cost." He looked at with something like wonder. "This human reminded my daughter of that truth, and she has reminded me." He turned to face the judges. "I will not stand against them. I will not allow them to be punished for what is, in truth, the act I have witnessed in centuries." Murmurs swept through the room. The judges argued in hushed voices. Finally, the lead judge raised her hand for silence. "The law is the law," she said slowly. "The gift of essence is sacred. Giving it to an outsider is a crime." Lyra's hand tightened once. He felt her fear through their bond. "However," the judge continued, "the law also allows for exceptions in extraordinary circumstances." She looked at with her cold black eyes. "Human, you traveled across the galaxy, risking death to answer a call you did not even understand. You sought no reward, no power, no advantage. You came only to help someone who had helped you." She paused. "This is not the behavior of a primitive species. This is not the behavior of animals or children or fools." Another pause. The room held its breath. "This is the behavior of a people with something to teach us." The lead judge stood. "I propose a compromise. The human called and the called Lyra will not be punished. Instead, they will serve as ambassadors, the first ambassadors of a new initiative, a cultural exchange between our peoples." Shock rippled through the room. Officials whispered to each other. Some looked angry, some looked confused, but others looked curious, even hopeful. "The humans have something we have lost," the judge said. "The ability to act from the heart, the courage to sacrifice without calculation. Perhaps it is time we learned from them." She looked at. "Do you accept this proposal, human?" Looked at Lyra. She was smiling at him, her black eyes wet with tears. He felt her joy through their bond, bright and warm like sunrise. "I accept," he said. 3 months passed, and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the silver forests of the 2 moons hung in the sky, just like in his dreams. The air smelled like flowers and rain. Glowing trees sang in the evening wind. Had stayed too, working as assistant in the new ambassador program. He complained about the food and the weather and the strange customs, but he was happy, could feel it. Everything was different now. Humans and were talking to each other for the first time in history, not as superiors and inferiors, but as equals, as teachers and students on both sides. It was not easy. There were still those who thought humans were primitive. There were still those who thought the gift was wasted on an outsider. Change was slow and painful. But it was happening. Because of an accident, because of a choice, because a boy from the lower decks of a space station decided to run toward danger instead of away from it. Lyra leaned against his shoulder. He felt her contentment through their bond, soft and warm. "I never thanked you properly," she said. "For what?" "For coming, for finding me, for not giving up." Smiled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the pendant. It still glowed with that soft blue light, warm against his palm. He had worn it every day since he woke up in the medical bay. "This belongs to you," he said, holding it out to her. Lyra looked at the pendant. Then she gently closed his fingers around it. "It was never mine to take back," she said. "It belongs with you now." She met his eyes. "I belong with you now." "I didn't save you for a reward," said quietly. "I didn't do it because I wanted something. I did it because you were in danger, because I could help. That's all." Lyra smiled. It was the same beautiful smile from the tribunal room, the smile that had made all the pain and fear and distance worth it. "I know," she said. "That's exactly why you deserved one." She reached up and touched his face, her cool fingers gentle against his cheek, just like in the observation deck, just like in 100 dreams. "My people have lived for millions of years," she whispered. "We have seen countless species rise and fall. We have watched empires crumble and stars die. We thought we knew everything." She leaned closer. "But we never met anyone like you, anyone who would give everything for a stranger, anyone who would cross the galaxy for a feeling." Her forehead touched his. "You taught us something. You taught us that the heart is stronger than the mind, that love is more powerful than logic, that the smallest act of kindness can change the universe." Closed his eyes. He felt the bond between them, golden and bright. He felt her love and her gratitude and her hope for the future. "I didn't mean to teach anyone anything," he said. "I just did what felt right." Lyra laughed softly. "And that human boy is exactly the lesson." Above them, the two moons glowed in the silver sky. Around them, the forests sang their ancient songs. And between them, a bond that had begun with falling debris and a split-second decision stretched into forever. Some stories end with happily ever after, but this story did not end at all. It simply changed into something new, a beginning instead of an ending, a promise instead of a conclusion. Because when a human boy shielded an alien girl from falling debris, he did not just save one life. He planted a seed, and that seed grew into something neither species had ever imagined. Hope, connection, change. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all.